Since the turn of the century, with only an enforced stop for 2 world wars, the Tour de France has rarely failed to capture the imagination and admiration of Europe's sporting public. And as last year, and a few years before that, the races started and finished in the capital city. It's a ride of 4,100 kilometers in an anti-clockwise direction, and to come back to Paris it will take 24 days. But it all began in Boulogne-Billancourt on the outskirts of Paris, just a metro ride away from the famous Arc de Triomphe. And after that, the rides began to make their way due north to the industrial coal mining town of Liévin. From there, they set off in an easterly direction towards the Normandy beaches of Cherbourg. And then the stages grew in stature, 201 kilometers, as they began to leave Normandy and drop down through the side of Brittany. Then came the first time trial, 61.5 kilometers. They call this the race of truth, just the man against the watch. And just chance for a deep breath, and then it's on into the vineyards as the riders go down the west coast of France towards Bordeaux. And once you're through Bordeaux, as anybody touring France knows, you sight the Pyrenees, and this is where the battle really begins. 217 kilometers between Bayonne and Pau, and there's no time to catch a train. The Col de Tourmalet, one of the highest climbs in the Pyrenees at almost 7,000 feet. One of only 3 climbs that day, finishing on the top climber's Super Bannière. And the record entry of 210 riders, the survivors that is, will have some respite on the undulations around the Roman towns of Carcassonne and Nîmes. By now they will have covered 2,600 kilometers, just a mere 1,400 left to go to Paris, and the Alps. The Alps, of course, traditionally end the Tour de France these last few years, and it is here where the battle will really reach its height. 190 kilometers between Gap and Serre-Chevalier, the Col de Var open, Briançon to Alpe d'Huez, and that famous climb with every corner numbered. And if you get round each one, you add on 100 meters in height. By tradition, the slopes of Alpe d'Huez will be packed by thousands of spectators. Once away from the Alps, it's on the road to Saint-Étienne, the footballing capital, where there's another time trial of 58 kilometers. And this will be most important. Gains will be made here that will probably have been lost in the Alps. And when all that's over, it's to the highest point in the Massif Central, the Puy de Dôme. And that final stage, 255 kilometers, will bring the riders onto the cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées. The roads closed for almost 12 hours to await the arrival of the most famous sporting spectacle in the world. And this spectacular sight of the Eiffel Tower is the one that all the riders will be very glad to see when they return to Paris in exactly 3 weeks' time. By then, they'll have pedalled 2,500 miles, and they will have sat in the saddle for over 114 hours. Some will have a major share in the £450,000 prize list, and some, would you believe, will have practically none. Well, the Tour de France goes right around the hexagon of France, and I think this is the very reason why everybody comes out to see it. It's coming to their doorstep. They're using the cities and the towns as the arenas, and the roads themselves as marvellous grandstands. By the time they do get back to Paris, the race will go onto the Champs-Élysées and the most sacred cobblestones in the world. But of course, all this rush hour traffic will have been sent away, and as many as 18,000 people will make sure the streets of Paris stay closed for the arrival of the greatest race in the world. And if that's my opinion, then how do the people of Paris view the Tour de France?
The best of the world.
As a cyclist, I just find it unbelievable.
Exhilarating.
Bernard Hinault. C'est très bien, c'est sportif.
C'est fantastique.
Merveilleux. C'est génial.
Well, alongside me now is Paul Sherwin, and he'll be joining me for the full 3 weeks as my co-commentator for the first time. Well, Paul is already a British champion at just 3 days old. Congratulations, Paul. And a man, without doubt, who has all the expertise of the Tour de France after riding 7 times. Paul, has the heart gone out a little bit this year, not competing?
Well, the other day when I met some of my old friends and some of the riders, I was wishing I was still riding, but I think in 10 days' time, when they get to the mountains and the race starts going uphill, I don't think I'll miss it so much then.
Paul, already the weather's hot. It can change down in the Pyrenees, but who do you really think can come out on top this year?
My own personal favourite is Laurent Fignon, I think.
And Fignon, a citizen of Paris, has won the race twice already, but this year he's coming back from injury. And there's Bernard Hinault. Well, everybody knows him. 5 times a winner, 1 second. Can he make it a record 6? Hinault's main rival is likely to be his own teammate, Greg LeMond. An American, and indeed no English-speaking riders ever won the Tour de France. LeMond has been third, second, and this year. And there's Robert Miller from Glasgow. Miller is now 27, and he's already given us one great moment in the Tour de France in 1984.
The two arms are all we want to see now, and there they are. Miller's won the stage in the Tour de France. The tears exhibited, 3 cups of miles and tears of joy.
And like Miller, Luis Herrera of Colombia has also won stages. He's also won the King of the Mountains title. Now he wants the full Tour de France. And from Ireland, there's Stephen Roach. Without his compatriot Sean Kelly, who's injured, Roach too is fighting back from injury after third a year ago. And there's another American name to conjure with, Andy Hampsten. He's come from nowhere to win the Tour of Switzerland just days before this Tour de France began. But are there other favourites? Paul Sherwin asked 5 times winner Jacques Anquetil.
Eh bien, le favori, tout repose quand même pour l'instant sur Fignon et Hinault. On ne peut pas faire autrement d'en parler puisqu'il y en a un qui a gagné 2, l'autre en a gagné 5. Mais il y a des coureurs comme Millard, il y a des coureurs comme Zimmermann qui sont même dans la même équipe. Il y a Forest, il y a l'Espagnol Delgado. Il y a 5 ou 6 coureurs qui peuvent prétendre à une victoire finale dans la mesure où Fignon et Hinault peuvent se neutraliser et aussi peuvent avoir des défaillances dans la montagne.
The Tour is a race of coloured jerseys and the leader wears yellow. He's covering the course in the fastest time. The green jersey is for the most consistent daily finisher. He scores points on the line. The polka dot jersey for the most consistent climber. He gets points on the mountain tops. And the red jersey is for the best sprinter during the day. Up to 6 positions on the route, the first 5 riders score. There's also time bonuses here that goes towards the yellow competition. And the white jersey, that's easy. The best newcomer, he takes it home.
Monsieur Lavitan, le directeur général de Tour de France, est-ce que vous êtes content cette année de le déroulement de la course?
Oui, très content. Nous avons une course magnifique depuis que nous avons quitté la région parisienne, bien avant d'arriver à la montagne, mais je crois que dans les Pyrénées, dans les Alpes, nous allons avoir une course fantastique, Paul.
And this fantastic race made a fantastic start. The 3 miles opening time trial around the street of Boulogne-Billancourt is an hors d'oeuvre to the Tour de France. It gives you a first yellow jersey, a first leader of the race. And with controversy too, Thierry Marie recorded the fastest time. So France had a leader already. And this was the controversy, streamlining on the saddle, and it was banned later. But not early enough to disqualify Thierry Marie. He was the first rider to lead the Tour de France. And the very next day, history was in the making.
Vieda can't believe it. If he wins this stage with a gap of over a minute, he'll be in yellow on the very first day of his very first Tour de France.
But because of bonuses at those special sprints throughout the day, Steeder didn't need a minute, nor did he need to win the stage.
Because Paul de Shore is the winner. And Banki's handlebars there is Denays in second place. Zonneveld is third. Anderson will be fourth. And I think Siena will just get fifth in the photograph.
The yellow jersey is on your shoulders. What's it like to be the first American to wear it?
Well, I'm proud to be the first Canadian to wear the yellow jersey. Never mind the first American, but it's great to be, with 7-Eleven, and without their support, I wouldn't be here, of course. But God, it feels great. God.
But fortunes change fast in the Tour de France, and on the very next day, the team time trial of 56 kilometres to Saint-Quentin, Alex Steeder lost that yellow jersey. The System U team here working well for the man on the right, their team leader Laurent Fignon, were making great gains on the road. Fignon was hoping to take time here and then go to the Pyrenees with a good lead. And it was a disastrous time trial for the Colombian team. They were working for Luis Herrera. They worked so hard they shed 4 men, and those men were eliminated. So it left System U at the top and Thierry Marie back in yellow. On stage 3, on the road to Liévin, it was the Spaniard Federico Echave who escaped the lot. Then he punctured almost in sight of the finish. And over 200 riders swept by him to contest the finish at Liévin. And watch the rider on the right, because it's the tall American Davis Finney, riding his first European event, who snatches the victory. For Finney, it was history again.
I'm in shock. I'm in complete shock. This is my first race win as a professional in Europe, and couldn't have been better. I'm amazed, and I'm just tremendously pleased. I found my biggest victory in my career.
But there's always danger. Too many riders?
Certainly too many. I think Leviton is thinking more of his pocket than the security of the riders, because it's not, especially a stage like tomorrow, it's in and out of all the small streets and a lot of traffic, and there'll be all the riders be in one line, like from start to finish. And if there's no crashes, it'll be a miracle, really.
Oh, what's happened here? This looks like Slamatin's on the floor. Oh, goodness me, Jos Slamatink has crashed, and he's landed very heavily on his head here.
There we have the red kite with a kilometre to go, 1,000 metres. It looks like these riders could possibly stay away, but the bunch are going to be pouring down on them now.
Well, their 15-second lead is down to 7 seconds. And Eschuet knows all about being caught inside of the finish. Oh, and Kabastani's gone. He assessed whether Eschuet was bluffing or was tired. He's decided he was bluffing, and he's gone. And Eschuet has been eaten alive by that group. If Kabastani had not made his move then, he would have gone too. The sprinters almost had the man, and he went. Kabastani hanging on. The green jersey of Eric van der Orden is coming now. One of the fastest sprinters in the race is through for second place.
So Eric van der Orden denied his victory again, and top of the leaderboard now goes Dominique Gagneux, still a member of the System U team, with Thierry Marie falling back to second place. But the Tour has its niceties too, and the very next day, on stage 5, the road to Villers-sur-Mer, it was a case of hello mum. Or dad? No, mum. And on the route to Tours, you don't stop for anything. Bernard Hinault sees the optician.
And you can see here, Van der Velde is checking the route. He's actually taking out of his back pocket the contour of the day and making sure exactly how far there is to go and how much effort is required to keep away from the bunch.
And Van der Velde looks like he's going to fall off. His chain's probably come off, and he's left Pellier to go away now.
Well, Van der Velde has made a terrible mistake. Paul was describing the overgearing of Pellier, and I felt that so too had Van der Velde done exactly the same thing, and his gear simply could not be turned over.
But the plans didn't fail completely, and Van der Velde, who's finished third before in the Tour de France overall, rejoined Joel Pellier and then took him on for the sprint finish.
Half a free-wheel there, maybe just to check himself for a few seconds of Van der Velde. Van der Velde, and he's going to go! Well, there you are, never trust the Dutchman. Van der Velde goes on the right of the screen now. Pellier is shocked by that. I think he really felt Van der Velde was going to give him the stage. Oh, he'll be so disappointed. It's been a wonderful day for the Dutchman. He takes the stage, Johan van der Velde, to a lovely applause here.
And victory by Johan van der Velde also confirmed him as the new overall leader of the Tour de France by 36 seconds ahead of Dominique Gagneux and Thierry Marie. And for the rest, it was back to the beach. Stage 6 then went from Villers-sur-Mer on towards Cherbourg. And it was here where there was a change in winners, because no Italians won a stage in the Tour de France since 1983, and Guido Bontempi put that right. On the 7th day, we went from Cherbourg to Saint-Hilaire du Arcueil, and there was again a big sprint amongst the riders, with Belgian Ludo Peters, a great single-day classic rider and a former yellow jersey holder in the Tour de France, hit the front at the right moment. You can always be assured if Ludo Peters takes part, he manages at least one stage win. He didn't let us down this year either. The significant thing here was that the Danish rider Jürgen Pedersen pulled on that yellow jersey. Only one of the Danes ever done that, Kim Andersen, and Jürgen Pedersen was delighted and I must say very surprised. He pushed Van der Velde back by 11 seconds. On stage 8, from Saint-Hilaire, we went on towards Nantes, past Mont Saint-Michel.
With the whole bunch going to the finish now, perhaps Jeff Leekens here will take the stage. Leekens has been the sprinter so far, but the Panasonics, and I think it was indeed the Panasonic rider, Eddie Plankett, who took it on the line.
But after 8 days, the first test of ability for the favourites was now at hand.
Yeah, the important thing is not to lose more than 3 minutes in the 60 kilometres on Fignon and on HINAULT and LEMOND as well. And if I do a ride of maybe 2.5, 3 minutes lost, that'll be a good ride.
And you feel you can actually concede as much as 3 minutes to these riders and still get it back?
Yeah, I think so, because the last week's very difficult and there's the 3 mountaintop finishes, so 3 minutes is not a lot of time when you come to a mountaintop finish.
But despite Robert's words, time really is important in these individual time trials, and Greg LeMond knows now that he must take on Bernard Hinault and match him at his speciality.
On the climb here now, an enormous crowd has turned out for Bernard Hinault as he comes over the summit. And terrific power in this man as he comes thundering over this climb. A rigid body, just using his legs like pistons, straight arms. Tremendous style. Look at the face, determination galore here. As he rides this specially light, low-profile bicycle worth in excess of £2,000. The wheels alone, in fact, are valued at over £1,000. What will Greg LeMond be thinking now, because the Blaireau, the Badger is back. Bernard Hinault finding the strength still to come up to this line as if the race has only just started instead of being 31 miles old. He's not even going to make a minute, an hour 19, 1:18:47. Bernard Hinault is on top with a tremendous ride. Roach is a very good climber in the mountains. Some say better than Hinault. He's losing barely a minute out now, so Roach is going to be delighted with this ride. The clock ticks away, 1 minute, 1 second behind. Good enough for third place, and Stephen Roach will be absolutely delighted with that ride today. Well, this is the finishing ride of Zimmermann here from Switzerland, one of the riders that people seem to think could be an underdog for the Tour de France, but he's losing all those 2 minutes now to Bernard Hinault. That's going to make it a hard session in the mountains next week for Zimmermann.
And Miller too has showed he's learned to time trial. Everybody knows he can climb like an angel, but to win the Tour de France you must be able to ride well when you're racing alone with only yourself for company.
And here's the arrival of Laurent Fignon now coming up the road, and Hinault watches intently here to see if this man can beat him. But look at the time. Laurent Fignon, I think, on this time may well have lost the Tour de France, because he is almost 3 minutes outside the time of Hinault, and just look at the face of Hinault giving away nothing at all. So Laurent Fignon, a winner for 2 years before he didn't ride last year, and Hinault came back in control, watching intently now as Fignon crosses the line. A disastrous ride, 29th place for Laurent Fignon.
But for many people, not least the small band of Danish journalists following the race, Jürgen Pedersen did the performance of the day. Even he thought he would lose that leader's yellow jersey in the time trial, but instead he stayed on top of the leaderboard by just a minute over Stephen Roach. So in 10 days the Tour de France has seen 5 different leaders, and with the mountains ahead there were certain to be changes. After 1,500 kilometres covered and Pedersen in yellow, there was still really no clear leader of the Tour de France, except in that red jersey sprint, the interim sprints throughout the day, because Gerrit Zolleveld of the Netherlands was building up quite a personal lead in that competition. The road itself, however, was going through the pasture lands of Brittany, heading down towards Poitiers and eventually on into the Pyrenees. The French enjoy the Tour de France. It gives them a chance to take a day off. There was no day off, however, for the 2 leaders who came into Poitiers somewhere ahead of the rest. But it was the Spanish rider who stole the thunder of the Frenchman, and Serapio beat Bago. Spanish riders don't win too many stages in the Tour de France, so Serapio was in no mood to make a present to the Frenchman.
It looks like a Seat rider coming up on the outside. And he's going to have to watch him, because if he doesn't go, he's going to get caught on the line. It's inch by inch, and he crosses the line. He gets him by the skin of his teeth.
So after 12 days, the shadow boxing was over, and ahead lay 135 miles into the Pyrenees between Bayonne and Pau. But first, from our fiddler on the roof, the riders had a little relaxation in the form of some chamber music. The Tour de France, you see, is not all flat-out racing. The riders are as nervous as each other. They know that the secrets of this year's Tour de France wait just 2 or 3 hours ahead. The upside-down world of the professional cyclist will soon straighten itself out. But with the long road ahead into the Pyrenees, first, let's take on plenty of food, because soon it's all going to change. The secrets of the mountain, they'll be revealed soon.
And so the Tour de France is in the mountains for the first time. And my goodness me, what a day already it has been. This Tour de France about to turn itself inside out. Men like Laurent Fignon, the winner in 1983 and 84, believed to be over 7 minutes behind as the main riders now begin the
How do you think LeMond will feel? Because LeMond said that this year he would never ride for Hinault, he would want to win the Tour himself, and Hinault must help him. What's the situation now?
Well, LeMond didn't do any work to chase Hinault behind, so I don't think he's so tired, but I think he didn't take the opportunity to go away like Hinault did. It could have been LeMond, and the situation would have been the same. And then myself would have had to chase all day. But Hinault was quicker to take the initiative, and I think that's what Greg lacks to win this Tour de France.
But there was one more day to come in the Pyrenees between Pau and Super Bagnères. 3 major climbs and then a hard climb up to this ski station. The French were smiling on the first day, but they wouldn't be smiling by the end of this day.
Well, I've seen 14 Tours de France, and I honestly can say that I've never seen riders attack the yellow jersey like this, which means they all believe that Bernard Hinault is not the man he has led us to believe yesterday. This is a tremendous ride by Miller because he's going to gain the most points from the pure climbers. And look at the acceleration of Miller.
But quite what was Bernard Hinault doing? In yellow and trying to win this Tour de France in 2 days in the Pyrenees, Greg LeMond didn't know whether any longer he could trust his team.
Hinault absolutely surrounded by motorbikes, and I have to say that this really isn't fair for the other riders because they shouldn't be closer than 25 yards. And what's this? The group coming up on him, and that looks like Zimmerman in the red jersey. And would you believe this? This group has flown out of nowhere. Robert Miller is here. They've come over the top of the parasol, and they must have told Eno that's why he was freewheeling. The gap was officially 3 minutes on the way up the parasol. So the climbers have come down on Eno, and all of a sudden this Tour de France is once again an open race. And Eno is cracking. Eno is beginning to lose ground. This is Coquillon, who is now having to grimace. This Tour de France, I really believe that Brian Hampson's going off the back. Andy Hampson's launched an attack. Hampson's gone clear now, he looks over his shoulder. Miller is just brought Hampson back to the leaders. And Hampson says, thank you very much, Robert. Fresh as a daisy, he goes clear. Well, that's a marvellous attack by Andy Hampson. First Tour de France, 23 years of age. And having won the Tour of Switzerland, he really is confident. Miller is having to grit his teeth right now and breathe deeply and hope he can recover. And I think Herrera had his hand in the air then, saying to Zimmerman, come on, don't let it go now, we've worked hard for this. For him. And what's happening? He's slackening off his toe clap. And it looks as though Herrera's punctured. Herrera has released his toe straps. He's got a flat tyre, I think. What a tragedy.
But this 10-mile climb to the finish was the moment Greg LeMond had waited for. The chance of revenge over his teammate Bernard Hinault, the chance to get his own back on what he did a day ago. And LeMond takes off in pursuit of Andy Hampson. He catches him, he leaves him. And LeMond now is motivated by revenge.
No American has ever won a stage in the mountains before in the Tour de France. And when the seconds go on the screen as he crosses the line, we'll see whether he's done enough to take the overall lead away again. LeMond now knows he can afford a smile. 100 metres to go. Every one of the likely contenders for this tour this year has attacked today, and they've been beaten fair and square by the American from California. LeMond punches the sky. Eno deserves to hold on to that yellow jersey, and he's done his gears again on the climb. Eno's gears are slipping, and that is costing him seconds now. He's inside a minute to losing the yellow jersey. Eno comes up to the line now. He will stay in yellow by less than 1 minute, and that is unbelievable.
And it was a great day for Scotland because Robert Miller took the lead in the King of the Mountains competition. So the Pyrenees had again been kind to Robert Miller because he was 4th overall in the race now. Eno was just in the lead, LeMond was 2nd. And watch out for Zimmerman.
These 4 riders still working reasonably well together. Paul's right when he said, it looks like Pouls is having a go. He said that Pouls was wasting his time in the back. And look at this attack now. And Nicky Reuteman's the one that's going to have to bring him back. Pouls has saved up a lot of energy for this. He'll try to break the elastic because it seems he doesn't trust his sprint at the finish. But it's not going to work. Reutemann was very, very vigilant. The other 2 content to follow. Reutemann has showed too that he has some speed left in those tired legs. Comes right up behind Pouls. And Pouls has found that the first one doesn't work, but now watch on the right. Hagedorn's going now. Classic move, because when one comes back, who can answer? Reutemann can't answer. So it looks as though Hagedorn is going to go. And Hagedorn, the former champion of Belgium, Christophe Lavan, is having to try and bridge it, and they've spread this breakaway all over the road now. And it's Reutemann who brought the previous attack back, who's struggling at the back. And still they're going to come together. And at 5 kilometres from the finish now, that break is going to come back together. 2 very good attacks there. Reutemann is going to be very, very pleased they've closed the gap, but I don't think he'll have the legs to launch a 3rd attack. And as it's been left to Lavan to close the gap, then, or as I speak, Reutemann goes. So this is 1, 2, 3. Reutemann's gone, and this one, the riders are out of breath.
And so on this flat stage to Blagnac, it was the Swiss rider Nicky Reutemann who won the day. The favourites had a day off and finished in the bunch just behind. And continuing the flat roads linking the walled city of Carcassonne with the Roman town of Nimes, there was a breakaway again, this time Frank Hoster, the Belgian sprinter, a winner in the past of the green jersey in the Tour de France, showed he still can sprint well. He didn't affect the overall result either, but he did give Belgium a great win.
Avec plus de 4 minutes d'avance,
This is Valet left high and dry here because Gorospe took advantage of the service car when he punctured. Valet is just left with, look at it, absolutely fuming. Here he says, where the heck have you been? And they say, we're sorry, we had to do Gorospe first. Now all he's got to do after nearly 8 hours in the saddle is wave to the people. And there we are. Thank you very much, Jean-Francois, right on cue. He's going to come home now after nearly 8 hours in the saddle, a deserved winner, and an enormous cheer from the crowd here.
So a first victory for Jean-Francois Bernard, but the real race between Hinault and Greg LeMond now enters the high Alps. The next major test of the Tour de France was indeed the Alps, and the ride from Gap to Serre-Chevalier, and indeed the Col de Grenon, a climb of 8,000 feet. And at first the bunch stayed tightly together. Bernard Hinault seemingly happy to control the race with that yellow jersey, with visits to the doctor's car. It seems he has a problem with his legs. I'm not surprised after 3,000 kilometres. Miller in the polka dot jersey also seemed to be struggling. He wasn't enjoying the Alps like he did the Pyrenees. But the Spanish rider Eduardo Chozas was. He went out in front and everybody let him go. This turned out to be quite a surprise, a Spaniard in the lead on the big climbs in the Alps. And at the end of the day, there would still be a change in the leadership, but it would come as something of an anticlimax. Hinault was now 15 minutes behind this man. Where was LeMond?
Chozas coming home. He just has to hold his rhythm a little bit longer. He shakes his head there. He puts his arms in the air. An average speed over the mountains today of 20 miles an hour.
And while Chozas was enjoying the fruits of the day's victory farther up the mountain, Greg LeMond was preparing to enjoy his greatest moment as well. Bernard Hinault was 3 minutes behind him, and together with Urs Zimmermann, LeMond was riding into an historic yellow jersey. He always said he would win it in the Alps. So, on the 20th of July, a Sunday, in the height of dizzy summer, Greg LeMond became the first American ever to lead the Tour de France. And there's the confirmation. LeMond on top, Zimmermann second, Hinault now third, and Robert Miller still fourth. But for some, the day had been totally exhausting. And after the climb of the Col de Grenon, the second day in the Alps took them to the top of Alpe d'Huez, a vicious brute of a climb, 7 miles high. You can count every corner on the way to this ski station. They're all numbered, and at every corner they even tell you how high you are. But first of all, the riders had to climb the Col de Galibier at 8,000 feet, and LeMond, spending his first day in yellow, still did not know if he could trust his own teammate Bernard Hinault. And he was right. Hinault launched an attack immediately. LeMond was being forced on the defensive already. He was right to have sleepless nights, and he was possibly right to criticise Hinault. But then without Hinault, this Tour de France really would not have been great. Hinault consolidated his attack on the descent of the Col de Galibier. He took many risks and often topping speeds of 55 miles an hour. He forced LeMond to come back at him. And Hinault always said if LeMond was going to win this tour, he'd win it because he really was the best. LeMond had help from his teammates, and he finally got back alongside Bernard Hinault. Now Hinault was going to have to match his young rival, pedal rev for pedal rev. The Alps were all around them, but it's on the descent where the two riders again broke clear. And with fantastic speeds of almost 60 miles an hour, there wasn't a man in the race could stay with them. These were the two finest riders in this year's Tour de France. The great rider, Bernard Hinault, with 5 wins, the young champion, Greg LeMond, looking for his first, and the rest, no one.
Have you ever seen crowds like that? These public roads in France, and wait till you see the crowds later waiting for the Tour de France on the Alpe d'Huez, and the town of Toussuire, wishing Bernard Hinault the best of luck. We're with you, it says. And there he comes, right under the banner on cue, in the lead. Greg LeMond sits up and takes a drink. as Bernard Hinault goes over the top of the Col de la Coiffure in the lead with the yellow jersey of Greg LeMond right on his back wheel. And there's the kite flying in the sky today. It heralds the end of the Alps as well. And fittingly enough, the two best riders to pass through the Alps and the Pyrenees. Hinault first under it, Greg LeMond in yellow is second. And this is now coming towards the end of what has been a most memorable section in the Tour de France. The mountains again have produced the truth and produced two great men here. And Greg LeMond must be feeling now as though his Tour de France is coming a little bit closer.
It's amazing as well to see them, after all the rivalry that's been written about them in the press in the last few days, after Hinault's not going to help LeMond's not going to help Hinault, to see them reunited in this day, well, it's been a fantastic day really for these two riders to go away and just stamp their authority all over this Tour de France.
Paul, this has been a Tour de France in the greatest tradition of the event. We thought these days had gone with the absence of Eddy Merckx, the man who won 5 times and always used to win so well, the absence of Jacques Anquetil, who in the late 50s and early 60s won the race 5 times. They used to destroy the field like no other riders could. But since then, the technology of cycling has become so fine down that riders snatch bikes, quick wheel changes, always meant to tell them time gaps. They have only really to ride the bike, and therefore are winning by seconds and not minutes. And yet here we are now in the most modern Tour of its time, and the two greatest riders have ripped the field apart. And an arm goes round, What has Greg LeMond said to Bernard? The smiles, this is unbelievable. The top of one of the hardest climbs in the Tour de France, and these two men smile. LeMond is making this fall look like a club run now.
Oh, this is fantastic. All the way up this climb, it looks as if they've been out on a training ride together. And both of them, you can see how happy they are now that they're going to be first and second over the line here. This is absolutely incredible.
I'm going to ask Cathy LeMond to say something alongside me here. She can tell us what it's like now to see Bernard Hinault and Greg come up the mountain. Cathy?
It's fabulous. I'm glad to see they're such good friends still. You can tell.
What do you think Greg said to Bernard then?
You win.
Well, let's wait and see if what Cathy LeMond says. Has he told Bernard?
Like this, watch. I knew it. I knew it. All right.
All right, there we are. The first time I've ever seen it. Two men coming up the Tour de France and now do it together.
All right.
The cheers are enormous, and you can hear Cathy shouting, all right. Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault have won this Tour de France together this year, and that's for sure, even if LeMond is the one wearing the leader's yellow jersey. Urs Zimmermann comes home now. He's over 5 minutes behind, and so that undoubtedly leaves Bernard Hinault in second place, Greg LeMond at the top of the chart in yellow, and those two riders are the only two men now who will fight out the rest of this Tour de France. That's for certain. Zimmermann comes home in third place, and he'll resume in third place the day after tomorrow in the Tour.
How hard has the Tour been, Greg?
It's been the hardest one I've ever raced. I think everybody's on the verge of just cracking it too. And I was worried today, even myself, that Zimmermann rode a really good race yesterday, and I kind of got the bump with only a kilometer to go. I felt great up until the last kilometer, and I was afraid that when you get the Frangel or the bronchi, you lose all energy, sugar in your system. It's hard to replace, and I was worried about today, but I felt really, really good on the last 2 climbs.
What did you and Bernard say about a kilometer to go?
I said thank you, and I said this has been a great stage for you and me, and I said I hope we're both winners.
It was no longer surprising that everybody was calling this the greatest tour ever. LeMond, Hinault and Zimmermann, but no longer Robert Miller. And when we left the Alps after a rest day at Alpe d'Huez, it was a flatter route between Villard-de-Lans and Saint-Étienne. But the riders weren't out of the woods yet. There were plenty of surprises still to come before Paris. The scenery around France is beautiful, but the riders rarely ever look at it. From the mountains to the pasture of the fields, the corn now is quite ripe. In the north it wasn't ready. That was 2 weeks ago. A puncture to Zimmermann could see his prize taken away, but on this occasion it was routine. He was back in the race. And Bernard Hinault, still chasing yellow, is also chasing a new competition, the King of the Mountains. But for one rider, Gerrit Zolleveld of the Netherlands, he had no further worries. With 5 days to go, he was the winner in the sprint competition. He was too far ahead. But the day itself belonged to a Spaniard, Julian Garospe.
4.5 hours in the saddle. And this will be a great result for Grosbe because this is the capital of the cycle industry and he rides for the Reynolds team. And so Grosbe comes home, an average speed there just below 25 miles an hour for today's stage. That is absolutely amazing. And you can tell it's told on the Julien Grosbe.
The final time trial, and LeMond still doesn't trust Hinault.
He's attacked me from the beginning of the Tour de France. He's never helped me once, and I don't feel confident at all with him, that's all.
So Greg LeMond with hard things to say. What's going through the mind of the Badger now? He's never beaten in these time trials. He knows he can still win the Tour de France.
You know, you never know what can happen. I can crash flat, so I feel really strong. I don't think there should be any problem.
Start of the test, Hinault is 2 minutes and 43 seconds behind Greg LeMond. It's not an impossible gap for him. He's done it before and he's won the Tour by it.
Well, he regards this as his own terrain because he's a specialist, having won all the big time trialling events that can be won. Hinault's won them all, and he regards this as his kind of race, and he doesn't like to be beaten at all, although he admitted last year that he was very pleased that Greg LeMond had beaten him, but I think deep down he was a bit upset, and he wants to go out of his career in a big way. So I think he'll be looking for a big win in this time trial today.
And Bernard Hinault is very rarely beaten in a time trial, and today he was going to make sure it was no exception. He started 3 minutes behind Zimmerman. The time to beat, 1 hour 17 and 37 seconds.
So Zimmerman comes up now, and he's going to do a time outside that of Grosbe. But remember that Hinault started 3 minutes behind him, and this is going to put Hinault with a time of 1 hour 15 minutes and 35 seconds, and that is an absolutely superb time, an average speed of 46 kilometers an hour, and that is a marvelous average speed when you see that mountain. And he's gone and done a ride of almost 28 miles an hour. So Hinault is home and dry with a time of 1 hour 15 minutes and 34 seconds. He knocks Grosbe back into third place, and that I think is where he'll finish now, but we want to see exactly what Greg LeMond can do. LeMond is still some 3 minutes behind Hinault on the road, and so I wonder now if Greg is going to come in with a time almost equal to Hinault.
And into this right-hand bend, watch carefully. LeMond goes down. He either misjudges the corner or, as some people said, his bike had been sabotaged. Nobody really believed that, but LeMond did say his brakes were loose, and at the finish line there were plenty of accusations. The concern was evident.
Can't be, Greg. It can't be. Is there a crash with Greg? No, Kent, no.
But he's all right, he's all right.
What happened? Oh, what happened? What do you mean he's all right?
Another bike change, and this amazing tour had produced another surprise. But LeMond wasn't finished yet.
LeMond has hardly conceded an inch in this Tour de France. Bernard Hinault will undoubtedly be extremely upset, and I think he must now concede. He cannot win this Tour de France. LeMond has simply proved himself to be just too strong for the Badger. 1:16.01, that's good enough for second place, and again emphasising that Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault are the two top riders in this year's Tour de France.
And so we came to stage 21, 190 kilometres from Saint-Étienne to Clermont-Ferrand. Clermont-Ferrand is in the Massif Central, and there's one mountain there called the Puy de Dôme, a climb of almost 5,000 feet. And on a nice day, you can see over 100 miles.
And this is the other top rider from America in the Tour de France this year, Andy Hampton, wearing the white jersey and looking extremely pleased with his ride again today. And alongside him now in that other white jersey with the rainbow band is the great Joop Zoetemelk, almost 40 years of age, and he's climbing alongside Andy Hampton here. And Eric Mackler finally went clear just about a mile from the summit of the climb. He's just going to come round the bend now. He'll come down to an enormous cheer from the gallery here. And he's going to win 5.5 hours in the saddle today. You can see the clock on the corner of the screen. An average working day for these superhumans of the Tour de France. They seem to get up at 6 every morning. They're down on the start line signing autographs by 9 o'clock. and then they pedal off until 4 in the afternoon. And Eric Maschler going to come round the corner now, and he'll be the winner of this stage of the Tour de France, which brings to an end the Tour de France in the mountains. Mackler understandably delighted.
And there was no happy ending for Scotland's Robert Miller. He retired just 2 days away from Paris. And there were many others too who fell by the wayside. For the survivors, the final weekend and first Saturday's stage, which took them 194 kilometres to Nevers. Eric van der Orden in the green jersey, yet to win a stage.
And so the whole pack coming towards the line then. Rougy Rogier is in the lead. He's not a sprinter. He's what the French call a stayer. And look at the bumping and barging now as Van der Orden tries to break out in that green jersey. He's so desperate for a win. He's not going to get it again. He's robbed on the line by Guido Bontempi of Italy. Van der Orden will be absolutely fuming as that bunch came in all together. The green jersey was beaten again, and Guido Bontempi, and let's look at this again here, the big Italian who won at Cherbourg on his own and now shows himself to be a sprinter as well. Van der Orden in that green jersey tried so hard, but he's not going to do it yet again.
So, with all the mountains climbed, the riders came to the final day of the Tour de France, and what a tour it had been. Eric van der Orden confirmed as winner of the green jersey, and still 1 day to go when he could at last win a stage. And Bernard Hinault wearing the polka dot jersey here, celebrating with Jean-René Bernadotte, because he's also won the King of the Mountains competition. Hinault has no chance now of winning the Tour de France, and he knows it, but the drama isn't over. Greg LeMond on this very last day has a bike change. Very, very quickly back into the race, the Eiffel Tower didn't throw a shadow over this race for the man in yellow. America was watching, and the young American was home on the cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées. Bernard Hinault, the Badger, had been beaten at last.
Not long to go now as Bob Rowe looks over his shoulders. He's finishing this race extremely strongly, but I'm afraid the pack are watching him well now. And although we may not be seeing Joop Zoetemelk of Holland, we must mention this great Dutchman, almost 40 years of age, finishing his 16th Tour de France, and that is a record again in the history books. This Tour de France has set so many records this year. Now the pack begins to fan out, a sign that the men are looking at the front, pushing through. Watch Van der Orden there. In fact, he's just out of our picture on the left of the screen. Bontempi is also beginning to move up towards the front. And this is Jean-Francois Bernard trying to wind up the sprint now. Another rider who's come good towards the end. And Bernard thinking perhaps of bringing his teammate and race winner Greg LeMond into play. The green jersey of Van der Orden has a wonderful position now. He's lying in 4th place. The pace being set by the Panasonic. HINAULT here.
Well, he's very, very well placed there, Van der Orden. He notices Frank Hoster, another very good sprinter from the Fego team. He's keeping an eye on him. And looks like Johan van der Velde is leading the sprint out here with Jean-René Bernadotte just behind him. And then Steve Bauer. So we've got two riders leading out their sprinters as they come underneath the red kite with a kilometre to go. And now under that last red flag, then Greg LeMond has definitely won the Tour de France here, because if he falls off, he'll have the same time as the winner. And Greg's moving up to the front. Maybe he's going to try a surprise sprint to try and win this last stage.
And like an arrowhead now, the race is coming to its final bend in this year's Tour de France. the hot sunny climes of the south of France down to a very humid, overcast atmosphere here now, but the break is going, and Greg LeMond is taking on the yellow, takes on the green jersey of Eric van der Orden. So LeMond is looking now to finish this tour on the highest possible note, but he's taking with him across the sacred cobbles of the Place de la Concorde the green jersey of Eric van der Orden, and van der Orden will be very, very pleased to be in such a good position here now. They'll see the finishing banner. They've left Greg LeMond, the yellow jersey, bang on the front. He's got to lead out the whole of the Tour de France to first place now, and van der Orden will be very pleased about that, but he's been washed away. Van der Orden has missed a move on the other side here. Jeff Leakens, it looks too, with Guido Bontempi. Guido Bontempi and Frank Hoston too. Bontempi into the front now, van der Orden, and on the inside of van der Orden, and Bontempi gets it. Guido Bontempi gets it on the line.
It's taken 73 years to put an American on top in Paris, and this particular man always said he would win the Tour.
And now the proudest moment for Greg LeMond. His name in French means the world, and this is the world of Greg LeMond in Paris today. The first American ever to pull on a winner's yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Congratulated here by Jacques Chirac, the mayor of Paris. And Greg LeMond will feel a justifiably very, very happy man indeed. He has been the most dominant rider in this year's Tour de France. He proved it when he won that magnificent stage of the climb of Super Bagnères. He survived one or two shocks. He even survived a crash today. But it all came right in the end.